What has happened, everybody? James Hancock here, and back to review the new Bond flick No Time to Die, which I saw tonight in IMAX up in Times Square. This movie's been postponed so many times that I kind of felt like I'd already seen it before seeing it, plus I've been tripping over spoilers for the last week, but not to worry, I will not be repeating any of those spoilers here, in case you're still debating whether or not you want to go see this movie in the theater. At any rate, before I start, I want to say that I'm a lifelong Bond fan. I like the good, the bad, and everything in between. I've been watching the entire franchise on a loop for decades, and even created a massive video recently where I counted down my top 10 favorite Bond movies, which I'll link in the video notes below. But I say all that because if I say anything critical in this video, just know that it absolutely comes from a place of love. I'm an absolute fiend for James Bond, both old and new, whether you're talking about the best of Daniel Craig's 5 movies or Ian Fleming's original novels, which I've been devouring recently. So, with all that preamble out of the way, my official verdict is that No Time to Die is neither the worst nor the best of the Daniel Craig era. It has its moments, but it's way too goddamn long, with far too few great scenes to fill its excessive 2-hour, 43-minute runtime. That's almost as long as The Godfather, and this movie is no Godfather. And don't get me wrong, I'm happy to sit in my seat for days if a director's given me great cinema to enjoy, but the flick better be all killer and no filler, and No Time to Die has plenty of filler. If I'm being totally honest, way too much of the film is a rather joyless, humorless, sexless affair, and the movie easily could have been 45 minutes shorter without sacrificing a single great scene. The movie also takes a really big swing with its ending, and I imagine it'll be controversial for some people, dividing some audiences whether they like it or not. For my part, I didn't really care for the ending, but it's far from the worst problem that this movie suffers from. But my audience did seem to be fired up and enjoying it on the whole, so my hope is that this film will perform well and find a proper audience. It's by far the most expensive Bond film ever made, so it better find an audience, because I want the Bond franchise to last forever. But as is the case with every Bond movie, whether you're talking about your favorite Bond movies or the ones you absolutely despise, reviewing them tends to boil down to discussing certain ingredients. Very few Bond movies are perfect from start to finish, but it's always fun to discuss the title sequences, the cars, the stunts, classic lines of dialogue, exotic villains, terrifying henchmen, Bond's allies at MI6, and of course, the many, many women in James Bond's life. So let's go through all these ingredients one at a time, and you'll see how I arrived at my feeling that this movie will not likely be replacing anybody's favorite Bond movie anytime soon. So as far as the pre-title sequence goes, this is where No Time to Die really shines. A lot of this footage has already been seen in the trailers, but while in this ancient Italian town, Bond goes absolutely berserk fighting a horde of bad guys, and it gives us kick-ass motorcycle stunts, kick-ass car stunts, great gadgets, the works. The scene just absolutely rocks. But then came the title sequence with the theme song by Billie Eilish. Now this song's been in circulation for a long time, so the tune should come as no surprise to anyone, but I have to say that this title sequence, it might be the worst of the Daniel Craig era. And I love a good title sequence. Movies like You Only Live Twice, The Spy Who Loved Me, Thunderball, For Your Eyes Only. Their title sequences absolutely make me feel high. But sadly, No Time to Die absolutely dropped the ball on this front this time around. But it's time to talk about the supporting cast, so let's focus on Bond's allies first. So Léa Seydoux, I'm obsessed with her, and I can watch her basically read stereo instructions. She is very easy on the eyes, even if her part's a little underwritten in this movie. Ray Fiennes, as M, he's ruthless, he's cold as ice, and he totally delivers. And the movie also used a nice visual tip of the hat to the previous individuals who'd played the role of M in the past. And I enjoyed seeing Ben Whishaw and Naomi Harris back as Q and Moneypenny, but their roles were a little on the thin side. Jeffrey Wright has some really juicy scenes as Felix Leiter, and I love his well-earned sense of camaraderie with Bond that they've been establishing over many movies. And in spite of all the online controversy surrounding Lashana Lynch's character ahead of the film's release, she turned out to be one of the best parts of the movie. She and Bond initially talk some good-natured smack, but they're not enemies, and they rapidly become the best of friends before kicking all kinds of ass together. But the real showstopper was Ana de Armas. When she appears on screen for about 10 minutes, the Bond franchise becomes sexy, glamorous, and exciting again, as opposed to grim and serious, which has far too often been the style of the last 15 years. And some of her dialogue might be a little clunky, but she's just so much fun to watch in action, and I think anybody who sees this movie is absolutely going to fall in love with her because she completely takes over the best scene of the movie. Now, let's talk about the bad guys, which is a major weak point for this movie. Christoph Waltz, he's totally wasted as Ernst Stavro Blofeld, and he probably should have never been reintroduced back into the franchise. Many actors have played him over the years, but really only Donald Pleasance deserves to be called Blofeld. And Rami Malek, he gives the movie his all, but the screenwriters must have been in a coma when they wrote his scenes. The single worst scene of the movie is this lengthy dramatic scene between Rami Malek and Daniel Craig, and in the past, James Bond's face-to-face confrontations with his enemies have always been the major highlights of the movies. Think about Red Grant or Goldfinger or Scaramanga. In my opinion, Malek was totally wasted in his role, and then there's this henchman who goes by the name of Cyclops who will quickly be forgotten and never discovered. discussed again. As far as stunts and action go, I've already mentioned the two best scenes, but on the whole, the action's fine, but not necessarily awe-inspiring. The movie looks beautifully, it was obviously expensive to shoot, but the real obvious Achilles heel of this whole affair is the screenplay. My grandmother used to use this great expression where she would say, cheer up, be attractive, and be quick about it. And this movie could have benefited from following her advice, because the movie needed some jokes, it needed some witty exchanges, it needed some gambling, it needed some sex, anything, but it just needed some more fun. This movie is many things, but fun is not necessarily one of them. Casino Royale was fun, but this movie, for a lot of its running time, it can kind of be a drag. But the biggest buzzkill of all was ahead of the film's release when director Cary Fukunaga was talking to The Hollywood Reporter, and he claimed that James Bond was a rapist in the past without even bothering to remember specifically which film or which scene he was referring to. He mentions Goldfinger and Thunderball's possibilities. Well, I've seen both movies many times, as have countless other people who love those movies dearly. And I'll simply say, first of all, Cary Fukunaga is wrong. But second of all, if you're trying to get James Bond fans to see your new movie, maybe don't accuse generations of fans of tacitly endorsing rape by enjoying two of the most beloved movies in the history of the franchise. Instead, Cary Fukunaga probably should have been watching those two movies on repeat and taking notes and figuring out what made those movies work, and why people are still watching them in droves more than 50 years later. But all that aside, No Time to Die does manage to salute the past a bit with some musical and dialogue references to On Her Majesty's Secret Service, which a lot of people these days describe as one of their favorite Bond movies, including director Christopher Nolan. But John Barry's official theme song to that movie was used in a really cool, subtle way. And then on two more occasions, we get a little taste of the song We Have All the Time in the World. So it was nice seeing this movie pay homage to the past a little bit, because in my opinion, the Bond franchise should always embrace its history, warts and all, the good, the bad, and everything in between. And I'm talking about the books, the flicks, the games, the lunchboxes, everything. At any rate, in spite of some of my grievances toward the movie, I did enjoy seeing the movie, and I especially enjoyed watching it in IMAX. And I've enjoyed Daniel Craig's run, which goes back to 2006, even if the movies have been up and down along the way. My favorite of his is still Casino Royale, then Skyfall, and then the other three are all kind of competing for the third, fourth, and fifth spots. Quantum of Solace is probably still my least favorite, but at a minimum, Daniel Craig gave us two good Bond movies, so I wish him the best of luck in all of his future endeavors, and I thank him for doing his best to keep us entertained with the character of James Bond for the last 15 years. When he first got the part, he read all of Ian Fleming's original novels, so even if some of the filmmakers that he's worked with, like Fukunaga, like to bash the character's history, I know that Daniel Craig at least understands the DNA of the character and what makes him tick. But it's time to wrap up this video because I gotta get up early for a press screening for Dune at the New York Film Festival, so thanks so much for listening to my rant, and if you want to watch a 30-minute video where I celebrate my favorite James Bond movies, once again, I'll leave a link to it in the video notes below, but please remember to like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Hope everyone enjoys the movie, but more importantly, as always, onwards and upwards.